Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the organizers for having me. Now, I will try to offer you a perspective from Turkey, and I'm asking the question whether China's One Belt, One Road initiative can help to materialize, to bring to life Turkey's long-running bridge metaphor. Well, in Turkey, we are growing up like at every stage of our education, primary school, by being taught that Turkey is a bridge between the East and the West, between Europe and Asia, between the Orient and the Occident, and so on. But what this bridge is in reality is a bit unclear. So I'm asking the question whether some kind of a physical bridge can come out of this Chinese initiative. And again, I would like to offer you a photo which I have not taken personally. I downloaded it from the internet, by the way, from Beijing, last week's summit. I wasn't as lucky as him. Well, this photo, actually, this family photo after the opening ceremony was greeted with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement in Turkey. People looked at this photo and said, hey, look at how they are standing. Xi Jinping as the middle, then on his left-hand side you have the President Erdogan, Turkish president, then on the right you have Vladimir Putin. So people were asking, is this a new world order? With China in the middle, then Turkey and... Yes, I doubt whether this is a new world order or something. But let me tell you, Turkey is very much interested in One Belt, One Road initiative. Well, okay. Well, the thing is, Turkish approaches that Turkey aims to capitalize on its geographical location to start with, between the East and West. So there's a reason why we call it the bridge. Purely geographical, maybe also cultural, but geography tells you all. It's between the East and West, and Turkey wants to make better use of this position. And One Belt, One Road project is primarily seen in Turkey as a source of investment. Now, I'm not going into the details of the Turkish-Chinese economic relationship, but when we talk about China, the first thing we think about in Turkey is the growing trade deficit for Turkey against China. Last year, Turkish exports were a little more than $2 billion to China, and Turkish imports from China were $25 billion. So, and it's increasing. Again, I'm not going into the details. My argument is always that there is a reason why we are importing this much. Okay, Turkey needs imported components, intermediate goods, and so on. Imports don't necessarily need to hurt Turkish economy. That can actually be a good thing. But the point is, if you have a trade deficit, you need to balance it with a capital surplus, meaning you need to get, in this case, it makes sense to get more investment from China in order to establish some sort of balance at the trade deficit part. And well, I have some quotes. Some quotes I, have taken from elsewhere. Some quotes from my own interviews with policymakers and business representatives. President Tayyip Erdogan saying that OBOR initiative is providing a significant opportunity for both enhancing the integration between the countries of the region and integrating them with the global economy due to its geographical position. Again, Turkey is one of the most key countries within the project, and this is also important for the strategic cooperation between Turkey and China. Now, this is from, you probably cannot read it well, but I will read it for you. A quote from the head of the TÜSİAD, Turkish Businessman and Industrialist Association. So this is the peak business organization. She says, this is a giant project that will profoundly affect the economies of several countries. Turkey has to be in the project as a connector between China, Central Asia and Caspian on the one side, and Europe on the other side, as this is the shortest and the most competitive route. Okay, so the focus is really, Turkish focus, when we talk about One Belt, One Road, is on the transportation infrastructure. And, well, one thing is related here to Turkey's domestic requirements, domestic needs. Turkey, at the stage of its current economic development, where it has reached the size of the 18th largest economy in the world, but Turkey is trying to, overcome the middle income trap, close its technology gaps, close its infrastructure gaps, and so on. And Turkey sees China and the One Belt, One Road project as a proper good source here. I have numbers, a lot of numbers, which I won't read, but Turkish infrastructure industry is big, it's growing, but it needs to grow even more. The railroad sector remains the predominant driver of the transportation infrastructure, but also high growth in airport, roads and bridges and seaports. Things are not that rosy, of course. Security concerns are, an increasing problem, especially in certain parts of Turkey. And the coup attempt of last summer has had a negative effect, which continues. But the government remains committed to supporting the infrastructure because you have to do that. There is no other option. And there are some targets for 2023, by this year, because it happens to be the centenary of the founding of the Republic. So the government has targets set for 2023. But the thing is, if you look at the shares of different modes of transportation, and as they are today and what is targeted for 2023, you can see easily that land roads are making the bulk out of the transportation infrastructure, 80%. For cargo, 89% for passengers. Well, we travel by land, so that's a fact. But the aim is here to increase the share of railways, from 4.8 to 15 in cargo, and for passengers from 2-something to 10%. And increasing the lengths of the railroads from 12,000 kilometers to 25, and so on. You need investment of $45 billion for the next 20 years. You need $11 billion immediately for the next year. And there are, of course, shortcomings in funding, and there are new regulations which are liberalizing the transportation sector and opening it up to the private sector. Recently, the railroad transportation of the Turkish railroad transportation system has been liberalized. Now we will have private carriers in rail transportation and so on. But the other thing is, so this is the Turkish railroad network, the red lines are the high-speed rails, which are only like this. And there are projects to improve this network. Now, the thing is, okay, if you do that, it will be good for Turkey. I mean, I would love to travel by train to wherever I want, but today it's only possible if I go to Eskişehir to visit my brother or to Ankara for some official business, because elsewhere you don't have the high-speed train. So it's good for Turkey, and Turkey can also become, that's the idea, a major hub for international trade. Well, Turkey has already become a major hub for international flights. Istanbul airport, the 2 airports and the coming 3rd one. But with this, Turkey can become a major hub for international trade as well. And so this is the value of One Belt, One Road for Turkey. Turkey will form a part of this initiative, and through its own projects, such as the Middle Corridor, which we have recently been informed that Xi Jinping has already also mentioned in his speech. The Middle Corridor, meaning the project aiming to connect Turkey with the Caucasus, Azerbaijan, Georgia, through the Caspian to Central Asia and forward to China. The Kars-Edirne high-speed railway, which the Chinese will be building. Kars is the easternmost point of Turkey at the Armenian border. Edirne is the westernmost point of Turkey at the European border. The Marmara Rail Tunnel, which makes it possible for trains to ride under the Bosphorus to cross from Asia to Europe inside Istanbul. So with all those things, and at each stage, we have a Chinese interest now. It will form a connector between Europe and Asia along the route of the One Belt, One Road, and more projects like connecting the Baltic Sea with Black Sea and so on. The thing is, yes, you need money for that, and you need international cooperation for that. Massive funding and international cooperation. Now, in Turkey, as of the current day, there are 20 large major transportation projects with foreign partners. The leading countries in this respect are Spain and Italy, with 5 companies each involved in transportation projects in Turkey. China comes then with 4 companies. Then you have Korea, Japan, France, United States, and Germany. But the thing is, China is already a major player. They have built part of the Ankara-Istanbul high-speed railway. They are currently undertaking parts of Ankara-Sivas line. Chinese companies are looking for new opportunities in what they see high-growth sectors, supported by financing from Chinese banks. Also, Kars-Edirne Railroad, other projects, $35 billion Kars-Edirne Railroad, and so on. So, and China is, in this way, China is expecting to continue to increase its overland connections to Europe and also export its high-speed rail technology, which Turkey is increasingly using today. So, and what are we doing then? So what are the concrete steps that are being taken? Well, one very important thing is to complete the framework, the legislation, the regulations. 2 agreements signed in November 2015 during the G20 summit in Turkey were: 1, aligning the One Belt, One Road with the Middle Corridor Initiative, so that's already signed. An agreement on cooperation in the field of railways. This is a comprehensive cooperation agreement, which includes the construction of Kars-Edirne Railway, but also elsewhere in whole railroad business, like from technology transfer to education of engineers and so on. And recently, last weekend, we had this very important land transportation project. So this is for trucks, for tours. That's important because Turkish trucks are carrying goods all the way from Turkey to Caucasus, to Central Asia. They are going all the way to Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, which are large markets for Turkey, but they need to return from there, and they return empty because there's nothing to bring back. Now, with this agreement, they will be able to enter China, carry Chinese goods on the way back, so which will, reduce all the costs and everything. The Turkish transportation community has been working very hard on this for these 2 years, and finally, last week in Beijing, they signed the agreement. There are certain advantages. Turkish-Chinese political relations have gone through hard times due to certain reasons, like the Uyghur issue and so on. But there's a recently improving political climate between Turkey and increasing dialogue, like over the last year, especially after the coup attempt. There has been really increasing, in a positive sense, dialogue between the two governments. Well, perhaps more importantly, Chinese banks are now involved in Turkey. ICBC has bought a Turkish bank, and they are now operating in Turkey. Bank of China has received permission, all the permits from the Turkish authorities, and they will open their branches soon. Turkey is a founding member in AIIB. And Turkey is also institutionalizing this process. For example, now Turkey is a special envoy for the One Belt, One Road project, an ambassador. And Turkish bureaucracy has also a working group which brings all the different ministries together. And this is a full-fledged institution with a secretary and with an office and so on. But again, not everything is perfect. Well, life is not perfect. There are still disadvantages. I think one important disadvantage is the still ongoing unfavorable mutual perceptions between the Turks and the Chinese. One thing is we still don't know each other very well. And when you don't have the knowledge, misperceptions, myths, and prejudices are filling the void. So that's a problem. And of course, political instability in Turkey and in the surrounding regions in the Middle East. So these are the obstacles. Okay, finally, So railroads are very important here. They are the focus. So Turkish government and the Turkish business community are focusing on increased railroad transportation when it comes to One Belt, One Road. Land transportation is important, and we had the agreement, so it will increase in the near future. But One Belt, One Road is all about connectivity. So the maritime Silk Road, or the maritime dimension of this whole thing, has also an important place for Turkey. Well, due to the fact, because Turkey is located in the Mediterranean, it's surrounded by 3 different seas and so on. So it makes Turkey a potential target for the maritime dimension of the One Belt, One Road. Now, we know that the Greek port of Piraeus is the main center here, is the main, how to call it, the main hub, perhaps, for the Chinese involvement in this part of the world or in the Eastern Mediterranean. But the way Turkey sees it, and I can tell this to you after interviews I had with Turkish shipping companies, Turkish bureaucrats, especially from the Minister of Economy and Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I also had the chance to talk to retired Turkish admirals from the Turkish Navy. So what they agree on something, and this is Turkey does not necessarily have to compete with Greece in this to get the business from Greece, to get the Chinese and the Chinese investment and the Chinese technology know-how, stealing it from Greece or something. But the idea is Turkish ports can complement Greek facilities in the Eastern Mediterranean, strengthening the maritime logistic network between Europe and Middle East. So these are the 4 ports. Kum Port, Ambarlı near Istanbul, COSCO Pacific has purchased 65% of it. So this is already Chinese investment, okay? The 3 others have been mentioned by President Erdogan last weekend in Beijing. Çandarlı near Izmir, Filios in Zonguldak, where the Chinese companies have already been building coal mines. So this is connecting to the coal mines, actually. And Mersin here in Eastern Mediterranean. So the idea is that together with them and the Greek ports and the Israeli ports, of course, and the Egyptian ports, they can form a network. Çandarlı is right across the Aegean Sea, connecting with Piraeus. Mersin can serve to Turkey and to the Middle East. And Filios is on the Black Sea, not connecting only with the coal mines, but all the Black Sea trade routes with Russia and Ukraine. So, but investment is needed for all these ports. You need to improve them, and you need to improve their connections, rail connections and land connections. So discussions are going on with the Chinese side on this issue as well. Oops. Okay. So that's the Turkish perspective in a nutshell, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.